Hello world, I'm Max. Welcome to another episode of the State Copy Podcast. As always, I'll remind you that this content is meant to be consumed in series from the beginning. See episode 0 and each segment appended for all applicable terms and disclosures. Appended segments can be identified by their title prefix, scp.0. Thank you.
All right, good morning. Let's see. I think I got my mics all running. Testing a new backup mic. Let's nerd out on that for a second. So I've mentioned a couple times that it's incredibly distracting to have to worry about whether you're losing your audio capture as you do this practice. I did some investigation last week when I was having all these problems into doing how I could do backups. So my preferred capture is I use a lavalier, a wired lavalier. Just keep it simple, stupid. And I use that with my phone normally. And now that my phone's been just randomly stopping captures, I had to find another method. And I really like the quality I get with the wired lavalier mic and the and my iPhone. So that's my primary. And then like yesterday, it dropped out, but my backup caught it. And so there's a segment about 10 minutes in the capture where I have to splice in the backup. Experimenting a little bit with other ones. Just got on Amazon. I found $40 and it llooks like a little flash drive basically, and it'll do audio capture with line in, and then I bought a like 3.5 millimeter wired lavalier mic. I did the same brand that I use for my iPhone, and it kind of sounds like crap. So I don't know yet whether it was the capture device or the mic. So I bought like a different mic and a different capture device. And so now I've got, but what's cool about that is it'll give me a way to, if I want to do walk and talks with my buddies, I can wire them up really easy using my backup mics. But the whole thing only costs like $50 to $80, and you need. It looks silly. It looks like I'm wearing pom poms on my shirt. The lavalier, the wind resistant lavalier cover. It looks like a little funny looking gray pom-pom, but it works. That's how I fixed the wind problem. Because this is a manual, because I think this is a thing everybody needs to start doing, I'm gonna continue to include all those boring details as I work through them. Health, 7 hours, good sleep. REM cycles look weird. I use an 8 sleep bed. I listened to. I went through a period of time where I was struggling with insomnia so badly. I've mentioned that in some past captures, where I was kind of desperate. I'd try anything, and so I got one of those beds, and I gotta say I've been really happy with it, especially because where I live is warm, and in the summertime the cooling is like vital. My AC broke one day, and having the 8 sleep bed kind of saved me. So it gives analytics on my sleep, and that's where I get like my REM cycles and all that. I think they must have pushed an update, or it did something weird. Everything looked kind of strange in the analytics this morning, but I feel really clear. I feel great, and Cup of coffee, no THC, no alcohol. I think so the THC fast ends this morning. That's probably what I'll do today. So this is a really fun time. If you do interval training like I've described, it occurs to me I should probably append. I'm probably going to create an amendment for the first time. So this will be cool to be able to test my whole system for terms and disclosures. I'm going to append a segment. I'm going to create a scp.0.0.12142022 today that includes a disclosure about psychedelics. I don't want to get sued. That's stupid. Anybody who thinks that that's the right way to behave and is a solution to anything is, you should really start listening to this podcast. It'd help you. Anyways, I am going to tack that on so that I can, as always, speak freely and authentically about what I think about that stuff. So I'll create a short capture today that will cover all applicable terms and disclosures around psychedelics usage and author views. Let's see. So I'm putting out back captures that happened between October 20th-ish, when I really started doing sharing all of this content, and sort of mid-November when I started doing it as a daily exercise, and I had everything. I kind of had an assembly line around production. So there's a bunch in there that are good for public release, but I haven't put them out yet. And so my process there is I go back and I listen to them, and I create a short little segment at the beginning where I kind of describe what it's about. And then what's kind of cool in that is, much like the amended segments, this whole thing, the structure I came up with in the naming convention, where I can go back and do the reviews, because I have this kind of backlog to release, it's forcing me to go back and listen to even, recent ones I did 3-4 weeks ago. And it's amazing how, I put one out that was, I think it was October 24th or October 25th. I think it was October 24th yesterday. I'm super tired. I had no sleep, and I kind of bounce around in what I'm talking about. But all of my the content, I think, is pretty coherent considering. And I got some good compression of thought out of that, and on all kinds of topics. And right now I'm going through those, and I think October 25th is the next one. I'll try and put that out today. The audio is just totally shit on it. I was using the progression I did for these is I started with first generation AirPods Pros that I'd had for a long time, and then I bought the new generation and I tried those, and that's the one in yesterday's capture, and those just suck. I think I'm too late to get my money back on them, but they have all kinds of synchronization issues. The original AirPod Pros worked way better for me. The new ones, they drop signal. The audio quality seems better and worse at the same time. It seems like sort of like the noise cancellation solid, but the It's got this weird like tick every few seconds in the captures that I think it's unlistenable. I'm going to listen to it because I have to to make sure I'm all the content is shareable. I'll listen to it and then I'll create a summary of it today, prepend it, and anybody who really, I'm doing that just to make sure that this collection is complete and that there's no gaps in my thought. I think that's an important part of the process. So I'm going to put it out there, but it's not very listenable. I'm hoping I can do a good enough job in the summary I do on it to get the gist. I don't think there's a lot of what do I want to say, deep stuff in there. It was really just the day after I went and had some beers at a buddy's house, and I reflected on that experience, me with my hanging out with old drinking buddies as a non-drinker, and like reflections on maybe I'm going to append that just to today's capture. So I'll put that at the end. And the summary I've gotten through so far is I was kind of moved by I was hanging out with the tag I've given him is friend to be, and his wife, after not having seen him for like 4 or 5 months. And I went and had dinner with them at their place, and I was just pleasantly surprised by how my friend didn't really give me a hard time. He was actually pretty supportive of me describing doing a podcast and all that, and I thought it was kind of cool. It showed me misjudging him and him being sort of wise in ways I didn't expect, and it was just cool to call out. So I'm gonna, when I get done with today's walk and talk, and I'll finish review of that content, and I'll drop it at the end of this capture for today's release. I feel like I had some sort of point. I was going to talk about psychedelics a bit. I'm going to... so I do this thing I call interval training because I think it's funny. But I really do view it as like working out my mind. And I found that so I do a collection of captures when I go to Lisbon. This would be last... hey, good morning.
Morning.
This would be first part of November. And I was at a similar place in my interval cycle. I think my subconscious kind of drove me to doing that. So I was completely fasted for like almost 3 weeks before I got there. And maybe I should include something about these disclosures. Don't bring your vape pen when you travel with you. Well, if you go to certain countries, but I got away with it on this one, and I figured I'd just do an oops. Sorry. I can usually sell that. But I brought a little so that I could come off a fast it was very much part of the science of all this. I wanted to come off of enter a new interval in a new country, while I was really finely tuned into what I like to call high band frequency. And I had a kind of magical experience as I went back to low band perception. While I was there, I think I made a lot of progress in kind of understanding the mechanics in the mind, and I unlocked some, just better understanding overall of technically, I think, what's happening, and reinforced the whole process around interval training. And so I'm really looking forward to today because I'm in a similar state. I'm very highly attuned, or I'm highly dialed into the high band frequency. Of thought, and I think, like the Beatles, when they crafted some of their best work, artists that have used psychedelics as creative inspiration. I've talked a lot about how I think that works technically in the mind, but I think the really good stuff comes when you twiddle the knob between both mind states. And I think that's what I've found, at least for my mind, to get the best creative result. I have to spend a lot of time sort of fine-tuning the knob at either end of the spectrum before I think switching back and forth all the time, or spending too much time in low band, is a mistake. I think you lose all the benefit. So I'm excited today. That means I could have really neat output from. So I'll do a bunch of captures today, and I think I'm going to do. So I've got a brownie that's like 20 milligrams of sativa. I've tried that before, and that was a pretty heavy high. I think what I might do is try 30 milligrams today, because I want a particularly strong dose. I don't know. I'm not sure how to do it. Like in my last interval, I went to another country, I starved myself of sleep, then I caught up, and that's when I chose to, I was in that sleep seesaw I've described before, and morning. I was well rested. I was excited about this conference I was at, but largely just missing the whole conference. It turns out most of that experience, I think, was not really about the conference, or it was really about figuring out interval training. And I had just like 2 big pulls of strong sativa vaped, and that was a and I just sort of sat at the what is it they use over there? I forget the app. It's European VRBO. Oh, I gotta cross the street. So let's see. Let's see if my phone's still recording. It's not. I've been backup audio. Still rolling. What did I get? How long was that? Man, I got 3 minutes of capture off my primary recorder. Well, don't know what I'm going to get out of my audio quality. Today, untested. Let's see. Where was I? Oh yeah, my process and the dynamics, like my whole process around interval training. What I'm looking for unlocks of understanding, wild notions that aren't really available to me without that. And I'm trying to maximize the benefit with like a lab coat on. And I'm paying really close attention to all the variables every time I do it so that I get a consistent, reliable, quality output. And I want that like really special, rare inspiration that can only come from. So I have to put a lot of thought into set and setting and physiological state. I have to put some. It's helpful, I think, to sometimes have intention around what I want to think about when I enter that mind state. If I can guide it, if I'm trying to seek access to an alternate perception, at least temporarily, so that I can understand, as always, nuance and see truth, I have to decide what I want to examine in that, while I'm in that temporarily alternate perception. So a lot of thought goes into this, a lot of care. For me, psychedelics are an extremely valuable tool for chasing nuance and getting inspiration. So when I had that last experience, I was in another country. I was kind of dialed into the energy of, it was Solana's breakpoint, and it was kind of that moment where that iPhone moment for Solana. I mean, their conference size almost doubled this time, and being in the auditorium, Raj and Toli come out and talk about, that was the first time I'd ever really seen them live. I would have loved to sit down and bullshit with them, but they're king of the day, celebrities at a thing like that, and I was just wrecked with sleep. So I didn't really get to form any relationships or do any of that networking that I thought would be useful for as I invest this space. And I'm just, a lot of it's just wanting to say, hey, thanks. I think what you're doing here is important, and I respect it a lot, and I appreciate you. That's kind of, those were key objectives that I totally missed out of that whole experience. But I made tremendous progress, I think, in understanding my one of my really important psychedelics protocols, which is using intervals for marijuana. Anyways, here I am in this strange city. I've completely changed my set and setting. I have all of these high frequency thought, like disappointment around my issues with insomnia, and worry that I've spent a lot of money on a wasted endeavor. I spent almost the whole conference in my Airbnb watching it on YouTube like I would at home. It's kind of hilarious. I got to a few of the good events, and I got to walk all around that city a lot. but I have a collection of all the captures I did at that time, and I'm going to probably release those in one big bunch. I think I'll just make Lisbon one episode. And so that's probably, I might start working on that project today. That means I got to review all of it, edit out any proper nouns I find, and just assemble it all, start to finish. That'll be a fun project. I haven't really reviewed any of that since it happened. It's really nice that a beautiful consequence of doing this and taking this seriously and giving yourself a pass to take it seriously, because a lot of people would just, laugh at some stoner who thinks that his thoughts are at all valuable in that state. Your family and friends will just laugh at you, but who cares, And there's a lot of power in not in taking something silly seriously and exploring it, because a lot of people may not have, and there might be valuable insights there. I've found there to be. I don't know, I'm bouncing around a lot, but today I'm kind of excited. I have a task, and I think what I might do is when I get home, I'll do all the post-processing on this, and I'll do 30 milligrams of I think that's too high. I'm going to do 20 milligrams of the brownie, because this is my first time back, and the swing is really radical. It was for me. Like in Lisbon, I got a really intense experience and set of inspiration from just sitting in that Airbnb, looking at a cruise ship and looking at Lisbon below me, and doing a bunch of audio capture while I was going from high frequency to low. I think there's like a cool connection between both frequencies when you go from a fasted state to the non-fasted state. And so this time what I'm going to change and I'm going to study the effect of is, instead of a vape, I'm going to do an edible, and that the alkaloid acts differently when it's absorbed as a fat by your digestive system rather than through it's like when you inhale, it hits you kind of harder, faster, and it doesn't last as long. So the experience is kind of radically different, even though it's the same alkaloid. So I'm going to try this time the subtle shift I'm going to do is, while I'm at home, I'm not my setting will be radically different. I think the intention I'm going to have is I'm going to listen to some of my audio capture from that trip and see, I don't know, what I've learned since then in that state. And yeah, this is kind of the reason I take so much time and to describe my process here is I'm really trying to communicate two things. The way I have explored this tool in a productive way and describe in great detail the value I get from the output, and the care I take in the protocol I use. I think, is really important to describe. So I'm looking forward to that. I've found I've really only had 2 experiences, THC and psilocybin, and THC is my jam. It's I really like that one, and I think if you go to episode 5 of State Copy Pod, you get the summary of the experience from psilocybin, and I think small dose works, but high dose, I'm not in a hurry to do that one again. Like, I think when I do it, I will be excited, should I try to, but I feel like I've kind of got enough of what that is. Like, I don't even see much need to do any further exploration there. Good morning. Let's see. I feel like today I'm excited. I've got my lunch all planned out. I have nowhere to be the rest of the day. I got kind of a loose plan for the inspiration. I want to evaluate, and I have a completely fresh mind that's well rested and well attuned to high band. Now, typically, I really only came up with an understanding of this protocol over the last 4 or 5 weeks. So this was my second really well disciplined interval. Typically, the experience is useful. Like as I build protocols around this, and a real discipline around how I use it, the internal understanding of how it works. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time trying to think, as an engineer, the mechanics of that sort of magical, the magic that exists in tuning the knob, because that's hard to find. That is, it's only there for a fleeting moment as you go from fasted state to stoned. There's kind of a deep awareness of both frequencies, and there's kind of like a bridge right there. And then what I do is I use this audio capture practice of mine as a bridge, and by recording all the thoughts and voicing them aloud in that state, that's how I'm doing sort of I'm reinforcing the circuitry of my subconscious in the way I want, and I'm building like a logbook. I'm doing a whole bunch of logging during it so that I can, as I said, because I'm trying to find that kind of truth in between both perceptions, both of the perception of each very, very unique and different mind states, those 2 different frequencies of thought. This is an exciting day. But I don't want to build a lot of expectation around it, because while I have more experience with it, and I think I've kind of optimized really well for the output I want, I have to be okay. My Stoic practice tells me not to get my hopes up too much, not to be disappointed if it doesn't work, and to just enjoy the ride if it ends up being not filled with useful inspiration. And if that's the case, I'm going to have some good munchies, and I'm going to sit and watch a funny movie or something, or just watch. Usually what I do is I rotate. I go through different types of inspiration, which would be, I'll spend time listening to all of my boring like financial news and commentary from macroeconomists and crypto experts, quote unquote, however you want to say it, and I'll use that alternate mind state to evaluate and critique all of that content in a totally different way. And then I'll try and explore just creative ideas. I'll try and think about new stuff and see if new cool ideas come to me. And finally, if I don't get anything useful out of all that, I'll just relax and enjoy the experience. Try and use it sort of more meditatively, like not to be so arrogant as to think I can guide the experience, and just kick back and enjoy it. And then I'm going to do this for, I'll stay in this low band, and I'll really wallow in it for about a week. And then I'll kind of, so I'll go kind of heavy, like hits from the bong, you know? I'll have like 2 or 3 of those experiences worked out, and then I'll just do regular, like a week where I'll just have one hit sativa vape in the morning right before I do a capture. And so that's all coming. And then I switch to fast, and 2-3 weeks with nothing. I'm gonna pause here. And resume. So, I really enjoyed this fast cycle. I felt like, so let's talk about that a little bit, because I'm kind of at the peak of that right now. What's really great about intervals is, and doing audio captures, is you get to take your fun insights that you get from low band perception. You get to store them, and then you can consider them. You kind of lock them in your subconscious in a useful way by forcing yourself to talk through the walk and talk process. And that's very useful. But then you also get to think through like execution in useful ways. Like I think the beauty of taking your mind and twiddling the knobs on how it's doing compute allocation and giving them, you know, the process that's coming up with creative thought most of your compute means a lot of the other processes you use to analyze things and do sort of, again, high band thinking, high performance thoughtful engineering, all of that, when you reattune yourself to high band. And I really, what I think's happening mechanically in the mind is, I really think that you kind of have these processes running. Our neural nets build these processes around for doing different functions, and they get resource allocations assigned to them. And alkaloids, in these psychedelic alkaloids, what they do is they just twiddle the knobs on that. I think they adjust the compute allocations for each of these different processes. And
You'll stay home alone.
So even if you get a really great inspiration out of having your creativity module being like dialed up to 11, like I plan to do today, you can't really think it through or use it in any useful ways. It's not true. You can do the engineering that's available. So I'm starting to find ways to do useful engineering in when I'm tuned to that low band frequency, but it takes a lot of practice. So mostly it's just useless in the beginning. And it's also, what I'd say is just fundamentally different. You're very, for a period of time, you're changing a bunch of the base weights that all of these processes that exist in your neural net are given, like compute allocations. You're twisting those knobs at the base, and it creates a very different perception of reality, and kind of but it's still you. It's totally you at the core. But for a minute, all of these processes that you have running to draw reality and explore how you interpret it are, for a temporary moment in time, radically different. And I think that, and this is beyond psychedelics, this is also what meditation is. I think meditation, without having mastered it at all or spent much time, but because I've spent enough time understanding how psychedelics work, is I think what you're doing through meditation is, through sheer force of will, you're quieting your mind. So you're forcing a bunch of hard if you think about what I think as I understand better how my mind functions, and I do experimentation with these alkaloids that just kind of do it for free and without tons of practice, I see that meditation is likely, through sheer force of will, you're sort of quieting your mind and you're ripping back control of most of the compute that you have by silencing your mind. You're telling it to shut out everything, all these noisy processes and filters that you have running. And then in that silence, you're doing something very similar to the psychedelic experience, where you're getting a very different, you're getting access to a very different type of perception for a temporary period. So I feel like I need to investigate a lot of time in mastering that, because I feel like that's some that is a type of perception mechanics that sounds very interesting to me to explore. That's something I'm going to do, but I think you need to be very highly attuned. I don't know, actually. I don't know if low band or high band's better, or the space in between. For the next several years, I'm probably going to do a lot of practicing in each state and explore the output. I think that's enough for today. Yeah, I'll stop here. I'm going to append the October 25th segment after I do some review, after I eat some brownies and do some review. I'll do probably a short description of what I think's valuable in it, and then I'll just tack it onto the back of this, and that'll be today's release. For my one subscriber and anybody else who comes across this, I appreciate you taking the time to listen to somebody else, to hear them out. I think please do that more. Not just listen to me, but listen to everybody. It's the only way we're going to find sanity is if we get over this terminal ADD and inability to focus and respect each other's opinion. Thank you.
The inspiration has started. All right, I am 11:25 a.m. So I'm about 40. What am I? No, yeah, I'm about 45 minutes in. The brownies just kicked in. I've been having a conversation with friend B on Discord, and I'm going to read it aloud and try and do a good job of filtering it. The sativa's just kicked in big time, and I'm in that magic space where I really want to think hard as an engineer about how to use this experience productively. Okay, so that's the build up. So let me read this conversation, and then I want to talk about what I see as a real opportunity in real-time circuitry that I want to build. Is I was responding very stoically to try and help a friend. That was my intention. And at the end, I realized I was getting I had this really nerdy, annoying tone, like somebody who's trying really hard to be wise. And a really cool thing that I could see as the THC kicked in, and I'm in this sort of magic mode in between, is that I could hear how the tone would I could really perceive my friend at the other end of the conversation, and I could try and put myself into his eyeballs reading this, and I could hear the way it could be misconstrued in a negative way. And at the end, I realized I had to let him know it wasn't a debate tactic, or I'm not trying to be a jerk. Let me read it, and then I'll try and expand on that. So THC, I really didn't feel until right between 11:12 and 11:24. Right in there, it kicked in, and you can see a radical shift in my tone. I'm immediately much more aware of myself, and of others in a good way. I could, in that moment that it kicked in, I could see a really healthy thing I could do at the end that allowed me to share my message in a neutral way that gets past all the perceived conflict in it, right? So let me read this. I can't believe this worked. This is progress, guys. This is me thinking this is useful interval training. Okay. So what happened is friend B, he dropped a link last night about the Geminids meteor shower, and how, let's see the articles, the Geminids meteor shower, one of the best and most reliable of the year, will peak on Tuesday night. And I've always wanted to, you hear about these, but you never go outside and just look at the sky and try and enjoy it. I've done it in the past, and it's like, even in a meteor shower that's really active, you might have to sit and wait 10 minutes or 20 minutes between seeing one. So I just think the real problem is I never make time to just do that and plan that. I think I might one day just book a trip to or figure out a dark skies place in the nation where there's less light pollution and actually plan a trip around it. Okay, weed tangent. Okay, but I wanted to set the stage for kind of how the conversation flowed. And this is me totally attuned to high band, well fasted from THC. And last night, I responded to that. Well, I just took a piss outside and nothing. Too much light pollution and not enough piss to catch a shooting star. And he responded this morning while I was walking. And he said, yeah, I can never see these meteor happenings. Plus, it was cold last night. I only tried for a few minutes. Okay, so that's the conversation starting in a really healthy way. Just two buddies. And then he drops this link in about Elon Musk. And this is a rare time where I'm going to judge a book by its cover. CNBC puts out an article titled Twitter suspends account. The Twitter post that CNBC did, or the headline is Twitter suspends account dedicated to tracking Elon Musk's private ... So it's private jet, probably. Yeah, and then the link to the article is Twitter-suspends Elon jet account that tracks God. Okay, now that I've got to try and capture all this, and now friend B is responding. It's going to be a distraction. I really want to get the play-by-play here with the lab coat on. Okay, so he puts this article up that it's very clear. I can understand the psychology there. He wants to talk about Elon Musk. He wants to get into an arguing match over, because he knows I like SpaceX, I like Tesla, I talk about the technology a lot. So he knows that I'm going to support Elon Musk, and his dopamine demand is pushing him towards needing to have an argument about Elon Musk. So he goes and finds an Elon Musk supporter. That's supposed to be me. And then that's going to just end in an hour arguing match. So I can see that even when I'm tuned into high frequency. In real time, I can look at that, I cannot respond. And by the time I get home, 5 minutes later, it comes to me how to handle this conversation in a productive way, because I don't give a shit about support. I'm a stoic. I cannot control. I describe this all later. It'll all be clear. Okay. So he puts this link in, and this is the way I responded. I'll do commentary at the end, or I'll never get through this. Yeah, I think you got to go someplace dark and spend a long time staring up. LOL emoji. Then few minutes later, I responded, "It's never very shocking to me." This was where I engaged. "It's never very shocking to me that legacy news sources like CNBC promote a story like this one and spend an inordinate amount of time vilifying that guy. All of their incentives align toward that behavior. Their business model is fully reliant on people trusting them to be their trusted source for real-time information about things happening around the world. Every employee at that company only gets paid if they're successful in that objective. The internet has now massively disrupted that model. And that's why most of these content providers have had to shift their business model to offering up mostly commentary on events that are happening. This is where most of the polarization of the world comes from right now. Legacy news providers have turned real-time data feeds into WWE so they can very cynically, in my view, claw back as much viewership as they can by sensationalizing current events and leveraging the super tribal part of their consumers' brains to stir up shit. So, I mean, basically, they are a cancer on humanity right now, is what I'm trying to say. And that's the conversation I want to have. Like, how do we solve that problem? And I think it's through what I'm doing right now. We need to start talking about it. So, he responds, "But this is something that happened." I said, "Sure." And this is where the conversation goes where I know he wanted to go. "You think they shouldn't report on it? Not everyone wants to be on Twitter. I sure don't." I responded, "They should report whatever will get them viewership. That's their business model. If they want to keep the lights on and keep the paychecks flowing, this sort of material sells. But once you see how it works from first principles, it's very hard to find any value in it. I'd rather just get my news from the source minus their commentary and use critical thinking to figure out if there's anything useful to consider about it." And then I said, "I never got WWF/WWE." Steering it back where I wanted to go. He says, and I really didn't, like, it's not, in the moment, it wasn't a chess match. It was like, I care about this guy. Like, how do I, and I know how he hates being persuaded. So it's like, how do I show him the breadcrumbs to see it? Like, that's what I'm trying to do. And that's what my motivation is. The weed gives me, like, even right there in real time, I'm trying to relay this as some sort of scientific process. I think it's valuable to sort of do this play-by-play. But even right there, what low band perception gave me is I was like, and I need to make this relatable. If my friend ever hears this, I want him to know that I'm not trying to win an argument. I'm trying to take a whole bunch of time to help my friend out. You know, like, that's like, I know I can't say, "You're wrong, I'm right." That will fail every time. You know, so it's really important for any of this conversation and effort I put into doing this to be valuable. I have to somehow not be a dick when I try and show my buddy something. I think he needs this. So he responds, "I wouldn't want my private jet tracked either." And I say, it's paid commentary with indisputable direct financial incentive to defame the target of the article. The only news I find useful in this is that Elon, as the head of Twitter, made a decision to deplatform someone that was doing something he didn't like very much. Now, I started expanding on that, and then I ended up getting distracted by what he replied. But I would even expand further on that, because that's an important Stoic principle that has to be explored there. And also, I want to finish the point that's valid about Elon right there, and how my process. So again, coming back to nuance, I actually want to respond to his question, and what I was trying to cover there. So in its paid commentary with industry, the only news I find useful. Yeah. Okay. So right there, I want to expand on that. So now I got a useful piece of news, but it wasn't my conclusion. That because I'm sort of interested in Elon, and I'm interested in his aims being truthful, and I think they are, for just trying to solve some of the core issues and then standing the fuck back and giving it back to the community. Like, I think that's what he's really trying to do. So have to fix issues like bots, have to actually make the thing self-sustaining with a business model that doesn't cater to financial support through being corrupt. It needed an honest business model, and the subscription service as a bot prevention sort of solves two really important birds with one stone. And I think Elon saw that. Now, what I'm looking for him to do is get paid for having fixed it and then fucking off. I think that's what's best for humanity. I think we need Twitter to be able to have this sort of free speech in code superpower, as we integrate ourselves and we make this interconnect between all of us stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. We really actually, it seems like this is a silly debate for just some economic gain, but what we're actually doing is we're all going to be more tightly integrated into what the internet is over the next 50 years. It's not going the other way or stopping. We're getting more tightly integrated with the internet, and that means Twitter needs to be a distributed protocol, just like what we're doing with currency. It's the part of our brain that we need to architect properly, so where we can get real-time compressed. It's like the real-time processor for our collective consciousness, and we need to engineer it efficiently. And what's wild about this whole simulation is that we need to change how our perceptions around that architecture. Like all of these laws we're making are going to enable a technical capability for us all to talk to each other and freely in a way we've never been able to do. And I mean, think when you've got Neuralink hooked up to Twitter. So we need the thought and care that we're putting into just sort of the fundamentals of how it works, the least restrictive and we stand to gain the most benefit. So we need to put thoughts not around the arguments of the day. We need to think higher order than that. We're engineering like a mind with this thing. And I think it's very difficult to see that. But we need to take great care in how we architect that system. The freer we can make it, the more efficient. Like we need to get Anatoly involved. Like we need a scaled, high performant, and we need Fire Dancer involved. We need that kind of thought applied to this sort of mechanism. We need this critically for YouTube. YouTube and Twitter needs to be a protocol that's self-sustaining and decentralized, and that levels up what we are as a collective consciousness. That is vital technology we need. And the sooner we start thinking about it in those terms, and we start thinking of ourselves as a lot smaller than what we are as a collective, once we optimize for that, it's next level shit time. We must get there. So we the earlier we can collectively start thinking in that scope, in those terms, on that frequency, the more efficiently we can construct that thing we're building. If we put some clunky thing on top, it's been shown time and time and time and time again in just like, if you look closely at how markets function, how much we fuck that up with all of the policy. We muddy the waters so much that it makes it this incredibly complex thing to make any meaningful projections on. We could make that so much more efficient if we would just get out of its way, let it find its harmony. That if we just stop introducing all this chaos with how we interpreted all of this stuff, think of how powerful that is. I mean, think of how much, if we just built a tool that let us translate all of that beautiful complexity in what we are, in this layer of the onion. I think the system we build from that is like exponentially a greater thing. Like, I just think you're feeding it the fuel. Like, what you want to do is get the biggest fire hose possible to the next layer of the onion, whatever we're spawning. Think about that, not like you're hearing a guy who's just stoned out of his mind from a radical shift in THC level. Think about that as an engineer, take it seriously and go, if reality works that way, like how do I transfer this and have it not sound like, there's great value in studying the system of the complexity engine that was able to create what we are. And we, rather than arrogantly thinking that we have the ability to somehow filter that, what we do is we just amplify it. We look at that signal of crazy complexity, all of the variance in what we are that creates this soup of potentiality, where you have all these incentives for things to compete against each other, and you fire that off, and you have all these things that are evolving into the complexity of what we are. And then we think we are at all evolved enough to understand what that thing needs to build into. I think a powerful idea is that we just build technologies that enable an amplification of that variability, that allow us to sort of translate it to a new way to interact with the universe around us. Like we can form up together, adapt new tools for enhancing the different components of our minds, I think. And we marry that beautiful complexity in what we are to what we create so that it spawns with that same, then that means we can translate a lot of complexity that's beyond us, that built us. It seems to me that the right way through this puzzle is going to be the group of entities of, exponentially growing neural complexity. That as it moves along, the one that is able to translate the most true signal of what it spawned from. Right, like all of the things that are, all of the variability in our perceptions is the magic. Like that's the thing that we want to translate in our technology. So this is where now I'm going to try and bring it back down to, ironically, high band thought, high band frequency, while I can still kind of see both sides. God, I want to pause right there and go back to the last 15 seconds. Okay, I think where I wanted to go is to say, think how Twitter is that for us as a collective. Think about that for a second. Try and listen to that clearly stoned out of his mind dude describe the fact that there's maybe a path to architecting what we are as a collective really efficiently, so that such that it creates that outcome that's incredibly stoned dude is trying to describe. If you start thinking about what that collective entity looks like, then it seems like building the truest filter or interface into our technology means we get to benefit from all that wild complexity in what we build. That means as we create AGI and integrate it ourselves into it, if we think very carefully in those terms, like an engineer, what is that? When you start getting all of these collective consciousnesses talking and understanding each other, think what that does. Think what that builds. That builds sort of like its own consciousness if we build this right. Now, if we want to make ourselves incredibly limited in our capability as a collective unit, we can lob on all these really clunky file compressors. That's how I'm perceiving it right now. We can think that we can build that, but that's bullshit. What we need to do is just build really great tools for us to work together. And so things like what Elon Musk is considering doing, like as long as that guy's true in his intention, and I've listened to him enough to where I'm pretty confident, I think I get that dude. And I really think he's I think he's playing it that way. Like I think this is me trying to just be authentic. Like if I had to gamble high stakes, that like that's my honest take, is I really think that dude is like, he's confident enough in his own ability as an engineer to just go in and go, oh yeah, all you got to do is create a sustainable business model for it to function with the least restrictive controls, so we can have some level of override. we want to keep the thing as pure as possible, but for those things that are just all of us can get behind are bad, can be sort of, we need some reasonable constraints so that we can maintain our sanity. So there has to be some sort of admin rights to a thing like Twitter. And that's good. So we need to just think really hard about how, after Elon gets paid back, because he should be for this, that's how the incentives should align to where it works, where he can just be like, yep, I fixed this thing. You're welcome. I should get paid for that. And I'm clearly like the world's best allocator of funds. So give me that. And then it should be a Web3 thing. It should be a totally decentralized protocol that has a self-sustaining model and has a really good admin interface, so that we need to really think how that thing is constructed. But then what we get at the end of it is something that allows this beautiful complexity in what we are. It takes like the best of what spawned us and translates it into what we're building. If you start thinking about it in those terms, I think you can see where this could be super vital that we get right. So I think we should just watch Elon, ask him to do honest reporting and accounting, and hold him to this, yeah, but you can't have it forever and it's better. And I think he'll actually respect that. And that's already in the works in his thinking. And I think that's how this works out. But let's be sober about it, and let's be like, let's just all agree that that's the best outcome for everybody. Elon, us, are what we are collectively. And if he breaks the rules, then we'll fork it. We'll just make one that does all this, and I think it would be a trivial thing to construct. Even if you got to start from scratch with the model of what this is, we can just fork it. Anyways, let's build this thing in that way. Now, boy, I gotta try and zoom back to high band for a second. Let me finish. Where the hell was I? But it's already tracked by the FAA, and that data is freely available. And in that case, of factual happenings, it can't be defamation. So this is where he wanted to, again, it's like, you know what I'm saying. So I said, well, who that guy is and how he lives is not in my control in the slightest. So it's super difficult for me to have very strong opinions about how he conducts himself. Mostly, I don't want to clutter my mind with any wasted thought or emotion on that grounds alone. I don't want to even spend any time defending him to someone who thinks he's a monster. Not my job. Not valuable to me or that person. The whole conversation is WWE. Fuck it. LOL emoji. He responds, why do you feel you need to defend him? I shouldn't say it in that tone. That's me being a dick. Why do you feel you need to defend him? Do you think he never does anything wrong, so defending is futile? Valid point. And I said, no, I don't feel the need to defend him at all. I think we all do things wrong all the time. Certainly he does. But I pay attention when he talks about, because I'm very interested in a few of his projects he's working on. Everything about how his character or intention, everything about his character and intention is not very interesting to me. And I don't choose to waste any thinking in that way. This is where the weed kicked in. Like I said that, and then I was just like, that was kind of a dickish thing to say there at the end. And so then I responded, not trying to be a shit dude. Joy emoticon. My comments here aren't intended as a debate tactic. It's just me thinking deeply about the link you dropped for a second and taking the time to tell you what I really think about it. That's me being like, again, douchey in depth. But it's authentic. Like, I'm really trying to say just that. I'm trying to say, like, I'm trying to get the thought out. And yeah, so then I just kind of look at that and I can hear it like in a totally different tone. And then I can say, hey, I'm not trying to be a dick here, you know? Like, I'm not, I don't want to win an argument or anything. This is me, like, really trying to talk. He says, and I haven't read this yet, let's see. I don't think you're trying to be a shit, but I struggle to find the problem with that link. I would classify him banning that account as newsworthy. Now see, now I'm too stoned, so I'm not going to respond. I don't want to go into, I don't want to escalate that anymore when I'm this fucking distracted by creativity and ruffles. Yeah. When I sober up, I'll go back and read these last, like, 3. And then I think what I'll try and tell him is that I wasn't trying to say it wasn't newsworthy. I even filed that away as something I probably want to go, like, figure out, because it helps me. It is useful to understand his character, especially if I'm going to invest around what he's trying to do in his companies and all that shit. I really have to evaluate his character, and because my friend linked that, I'm probably going to go do it. But I don't want to, like, the argument I would just have, like, trying to defend Elon right now is not useful. So that's what I didn't want to do. And so now the real topic is about, I guess I'm still kind of doing it, actually. I don't want to have an argument about whether that's newsworthy. Sure, it's newsworthy. I'm gonna go now. I gotta go figure out. Like, I'll give that 5-10 minutes to go see if I can see whether there's an argument on Twitter about it, because I'm sure this whole article just came from Twitter. I wasn't later on, or somewhere up there, I said that the irony that article he linked was probably just a conversation on Twitter. I thought that was great. But now I have an excuse to reply with another lesson. Maybe this is diabolical, this thing I'm doing. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to spend a whole bunch of time crafting a discussion about my process for really understanding something. So I'm going to tell him honestly, yeah, because you linked that to me and you wanted to talk about it. It got my attention. It got me to consider that we my important takeaway there is we got a lot of reasons to pay attention to the quality of his character. I think whoever controls Twitter, the architecture is really important right now. Like, this is critical. For all those really high reasons I tried to describe earlier, it's crucial that we get Twitter functioning as well as we can. Like, the architecture has to be fucking solid. And so I think all the evidence I have after careful consideration of a lot of the other projects that guy has, that is the right guy to work that problem. I think that he will do some low down protocol structure that gets locked in and self-sustaining that we can transfer into, like I said, a decentralized thing, and then he will hand it over. And I think if we get that, the world is better. Okay, so I can think all of that, but he's right to bring up that we need to make sure there's a good audit of that. Like, it's sane for us to do that. I don't think it's good enough for us to just do like careful evaluation of his actions. I think we should just have clear oversight, and we should all be really thoughtful about not making this partisan and trying to create the most neutral signal we can or circuit path. That has to be as efficient as possible. And that means we got to get this thing right. And my buddy's right to question whether that guy is being honest in his intentions, and just a healthy thing we can do is just let's all get the fuck out of Elon's way, but let's be watchful and make him do honest accounting on how he's building it and how he'll transfer it. I think that is a key takeaway that I get from this place in low band and high band thought. All right, I'm exhausted from that. Now I think I need to just chill out. I'm gonna go watch some TV and then try and judge how I perceive it normally. So this is a message I don't think the world can hear right now. We actually don't want admin rights. If you think about it, well, that thing I was talking about is a shitty a clumsy filter that allows us to inject some sort of control and I said that it would be required for sanity. But if you think about it from the right view, if you can really look at that and everything I was trying to describe in this retune, the very best way we can get the cleanest signal and the highest bandwidth, like translation in our technology of what we are as a unit. We don't want any cap on it. Like, We need all of the complexity. So it means the best thing, the most powerful thing that creates the most powerful evolution of ourselves is no filter. We have to figure out ways to deal with that and evolve beyond that. No filter. That's the whole point. That's the low band thought that I want to translate. Use as much or whatever protocol you can find to find this frequency, and then think very carefully about that and realize that if we study the system that spawned us and how it worked, we can employ that same strategy in constructing a collective of ourselves. We can organize ourselves just like cells do, just like the building blocks of what we are do. We can perceive ourselves in that way and then unlock an evolution of state. And the best, if we architect that with intention, using all of the beautiful complexity that we've evolved into, if we do a good enough job translating that model and we use it, we steal from it, and we just create the most purest representation of that at our level of instantiation of this whole riddle. If we can form up and think very carefully about how we design this interconnect between us, we form up into something that does what I'm describing. It translates very well what we are. So when I say things like no filter in Twitter, it's absolutely critical, all that stuff. And so I think when I take it back to that start trying to turn into an argument, non-argument, when I think back to that, when I think about what my buddy said, it's important to call out that we should, I think we got the right guy working on this, but it's right that we construct some controls just to make sure that we are all very transparent about our expectations and intention on his side. And then we hold him accountable for performance. And if at any point he violates terms, we just fork and make our own version that's a decentralized that. And we realize that that would give us a really pure interconnect for all times. And then we can benefit from all of the... There's no good or evil in that system. It's just a whole bunch of things trying to compete to find the right path. You just have to trust that the right path will... the right path is the only thing that can emerge from that. I hope all this stuff translates. I keep saying I'm worn out, and then I think of another way to say it. I hope that captured it. I'm going to stop here and watch TV. And now I'm considering restarting a fast after today. The THC is still active, but not as active. I was just thinking about that big glob of capture I did right as it kicked in, and for a good portion of the duration. I think there's enough sort of inspiration or stuff I want to go chase in high band off of that. So I think I might start another 2-week fast right away. I think it's too easy to get distracted. And I think that's a important enough idea to actually take seriously, the one that I was trying to burble out earlier. It's important to think about the construction in our social protocol, like Twitter, and think about it architecturally to where we preserve sort of the see, in this state, I want to say like harmony of the signal. I want to say I don't know. I lose it now. But I think what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll re-listen to this a time or two tomorrow, and then I'll decide. But I don't think I need to go get distracted by chasing any other thing. I think thinking about that, trying to take parts of what made sense today will make sense to look at for another interval. I'll stop here. Considering trying to explain, because my girlfriend's asked me a few times what I think about the reasoning behind COVID. She doesn't really talk much about it, but she's just curious to hear what I think zero COVID policy's about. And I think this guy just explained it. Economic warfare with the West. Let's stop here. I think later I'm going to transcribe this explanation to her in response to that question. I think my thinking on it has evolved to a place where the Xi government made a calculation that it would really hurt the West if the price of oil and energy, liquid natural gas, everything all went up, and then they worked out a price fixing deal with Russia for cost. Now, I think there's a geopolitical risk there in that the only way they can ship that oil they buy at a rigged price with Russia. Okay, that's a big tangent. The gist of it, though, is that zero COVID was all a scam. It was an excuse to restrict demand artificially, while everything broke out in Ukraine. And then there's like an economic incentive here because there'll be uber demand, and it's what this guy said about the very week that they let go of zero COVID and did a total pivot on it was right after a giant cold snap in Europe, when there's suddenly a whole bunch of demand for energy. And now this guy is describing strikes and all kinds of things, like shit's going down in London. And there's going to be high demand for energy, this looks like. So I don't know. In investing, this makes me think, why not take like one of these out of the money calls like I did for the VIX. I could do a small bucket of oil futures also, or LNG. I got to look at, I need to go study the energy market like stat. I've been not wanting to understand it. Now I need to really understand it. I just need to know how to play a volatility play, really, like with a high convexity. And so that's my homework for tomorrow. And just in helping her understand what I think about it, I think it was all bullshit, and it was a calculation that your government made to hurt the West in cahoots with Russia. And now we get to see how that plays out. Wild times we live in. All right, it's 6 o'clock. I'm totally sober again. I feel a little bit sort of lethargic. Ate a bunch of junk food. Otherwise, I feel clear and like the THC is totally faded. So, developments in that conversation that just started. I didn't respond for a long time. And let's see. Yeah, he said, I don't think you're trying to be a shit, but I struggle to find the problem with that link. I would classify him banning that account as newsworthy. And I just never responded because I kind of wanted to wait till I was not distracted. He says, I can't help it, Max. And he forwards the link from Elon getting booed on stage with Dave Chappelle the other day. I saw that. Here's some more Elon defamation. Friend A gets on and makes one of his comments. Let's see. I'll just say his daughter hates him too. Not sure what. Well, I said women do like to be ignored, or don't like to be ignored. I don't know. I was trying to play along with that joke. Elon doesn't strike me as the type who is eager to please. I don't think he's going to lose a lot of sleep over this. Friend B says, you're kidding. That dude lives for attention. Now, maybe he also gets off on negative attention, but if not, he'll definitely be feeling a little sore after that booing. I said, what if he isn't particularly interested in attention? Is there a statistically significant possibility that's a misread? I mean, it's logical to be a bit of an attention whore. All his competitors spend quite a bit on marketing if you look at their balance sheets. He just goes on SNL and people talk about his products. I'm sure that sort of thing is in play. Then friend B says, the Twitter usage, the trolling, attempts to inject his name into news cycles, nah, there's no possibility it's a misread. I respond, but I've listened to him talk quite a bit. I think he's a bit on the spectrum. Friend B says, he loves the attention, even Twitter purchase, ... Clear he never really wanted to do it, but his big mouth wrote some big checks. I said, humanity needs a Twitter. I'm most optimistic about him getting it self-sustaining and then decentralized after the flywheel is running and he gets paid back a decent ROI for the time. If he doesn't, the open source community will just spin up an alternative. I really don't give any shits how it happens or who's responsible for getting it done, just that it needs to get done. Humans need a free, censorship-resistant, real-time public messaging and consensus protocol for the internet. Free or extremely low cost. Twitter seems like the most logical path because it has network effect. And then I talked about how when Mauna Loa erupted the other day, I have family on the island, and I called them because it came up in my Twitter feed like 18 minutes after it happened. And when I called them, they had no idea it was even happening. And they had actually, their cable was out. And so when they tried to look over the the air news, they didn't get anything, or they didn't have that hooked up. So then they went to like CNN.com and there was nothing. And so I used Twitter to get the feed, the real-time feed from the ranger station or the volcano authority at the observatory right on top of the hill, so that they could see where the flows were going and make sure they weren't about to get consumed by lava. Well, so that's what Twitter's for. Like, we need that service. That's what's disrupting all these news organizations. That's why we're so polarized, is because all the news organizations are totally disrupted by having that capability. There's no reason to have them. So now all they are is outlets for commentary on events. So these news stations just use Twitter to see what's happening, and then when they get a juicy story that fits a narrative that aligns with their business model, then they propagate it amongst all the consumers that still think they're a credible source for information. And then the consumers of that junk get all of that, what I think of as WWE, anger porn. And they get all charged up, like my friend does here. Like, he's pissed off. He's probably reading all these articles, going, "No, that Elon Musk," shaking his fist in the air. And I just think it's logical to me that like all of the reasons for that behavior, I just think people have that guy is so misunderstood. I really think that he uses a lot of this stuff as free advertising. Sure. I mean, when you look at what the competition in the auto industry pays for marketing, all he's got to do is go on and do SNL. And he doesn't even have to pay for that. And everybody's talking about his antics and what he's doing. And they're watching his stock price. And, I don't know. I just think it's more that. And so my friend responds, "Humanity did all right before Twitter." And I say back, I got that link in seconds on Twitter. That is what it is for. Now, it can do better. So that's what I said in response to his last thing. Now it can do better. That will sort itself out, or the market will provide an alternative that does. Software is about to get a lot easier to do. And if you've used GPT chat to do anything in code, you'll know what I'm talking about. I mean, I think pretty soon, like next year, you're going to have models that run like GPT chat that you can just tell them, "Hey, I want you to architect a service that runs, that's scalable on this architecture." I mean, maybe I'm being ambitious, but maybe I'm not. I mean, now that we know how to create those type of models, why can't you just train it how to build software and then point it at a cloud account? Put some limits on usage with some alerts, set those in the beginning, and then just say, "Spin this up." Like, why can't we all just, and I think there'll be ways to kind of seamlessly copy state data, like of followers and accounts. Like, why can't we do that? I just think all of it's going to get pretty trivial, and I think pretty soon so I spent a lot of time in this capture trying to say that I thought Twitter was important for us as just a technology that we need as like a fundamental protocol of the internet. I think that's true, but I also think a beautiful way that the universe works is that it's inevitable. I just think that right now the most likely path is Elon does what I described earlier in that. And if he doesn't, then I think we'll just be able to spin up an alternative and everybody will roll over to using that. And it'll be extremely low cost, and we'll be able to share information in real time without a weird commentary slant that stokes up trouble. I think we'll figure out a way
to switch over to something that just is devoid of all that, and all of our interconnect will just be a lot quicker. So things like that volcano erupting will just be like, everybody will just know right away, and that's a important feature of our collective conscious.